Hola, ¿qué tal? Les doy la bienvenida a todos a nuestro 18º Congreso Latinoamericano de Dinámica de Sistemas. Es un placer para mí presentarles la plenaria número 10, titulada System Thinking for All Water Centers Stories of Impact, por Tracy Benson. Adelante, Tracy.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to be with you today. My name is Tracy Benson, and I serve as president of the Water Center for Systems Thinking. The Water Center for Systems Thinking is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. This session, Systems Thinking for All, Water Center Stories of Impact, will begin with a short description of our beginning, which was inspired by some of the well-known leaders of the system dynamics field. I will then share a few stories of impact that I hope will inspire and inform as to the amazing potential and benefits of systems thinking capacity building. Lastly, I will describe the wide range of resources we offer and in order to increase accessibility to learning. Our story began in the late 1980s when a single school in Tucson, Arizona began applying systems thinking and dynamic modeling to their instructional program. The school, Orange Grove Middle School, a school of 550 12, 13, and 14-year-olds, employed an incredibly innovative staff with a forward-thinking principal, Mary Sheets, and the faculty who never backed down from a challenge. Dr. Gordon Brown, on your right, a retired MIT dean of the School of Engineering, provided that challenge. Then living in the school neighborhood, he approached the school, those of us at the school, and said, "I believe your young students are capable of doing the same kinds of thinking as my doctoral students at MIT, and it truly will impact their lives." This vision for the future served as the foundation for the work I'm about to describe. The story continues with Gordon describing what was happening in Arizona to Dr. Jay Forrester, the father of system dynamics, and Jay knew Jim and Faith. So Jim was a successful scientist and businessman, and he was interested in Jay's system dynamics work and was always looking for worthy investments. Jay encouraged the Waters to visit the school in Arizona, and the rest is history. For the past 40 years, Jim and Faith Waters have been our supporters, mentors, and cheerleaders. We also owe great gratitude to other teachers and members and mentors who have supported us along the way, including Barry Richmond, Steve Peterson, George Richardson, Peter Senge, Danella Meadows, Margaret Wheatley, and many others. It's hard to name them all. Since that first visit in 1989 by Jim and Faith, the work of the Waters Foundation, now the Waters Center for Systems Thinking, has spanned the globe, reaching thousands of educators and students at all educational levels. Our mission is to build systems thinking capacities and deliver benefits to anyone interested in becoming a systems thinker. Our approach begins with developing a commonly understood vocabulary. Even with young children, we do not shy away from words like feedback, cause and effect, or leverage. We have developed a collection of habits of a systems thinker where people are encouraged to intentionally practice daily, thus making them habits for life. We utilize the visual tools of systems thinking that include behavior over time graphs, feedback loops, stock flow maps, and icebergs. Lastly, we believe that learning is best by doing. So our instructional strategies are hands-on, engaging, and fun. The 14 habits of a systems thinker were developed as a synthesis of much of the research and work of leading experts in the field. Each habit has a relevant illustration that helps people see that aspect of thinking in action. Our Habits of a Systems Thinking cards are one of our most popular resources. We have sold and distributed over 50,000 sets of these cards, and they're now being used in primary and secondary schools and nonprofit, government agencies, ministries of education, universities, including med schools and law schools, and also corporate places where leaders and talent development training use the cards as resources and learning tools. These tools should all look very familiar to you, as they are tools of systems thinking and dynamic modeling. In addition, we also incorporate organizational learning and facilitation strategies into our capacity building programs. We help people build their systems thinking toolkit so that they are able to independently facilitate groups working together to deepen their understanding of systems and surface and test their assumptions to help make thinking visible. All of this to do what they can to improve in their schools, their business, organizations, and communities. Here is one example of a habits of a systems thinking cards. This habit encourages you to consider how mental models affect current reality and the future. I would like to feature not only the front illustration, but also the back of the card that connects a visual tool with the habit and offers questions that help with intentional practice. On this card, my favorite question that I try to ask myself daily is the third. How could my own mental models be barriers to what I am trying to achieve? An important thing to think about. One of our mentors in the early days was Peter Senge. After he published his book, The Fifth Discipline, in 1990, he heard about some of the learning organization work we were doing in schools. I told him that learning is the business of schools, so we are in the perfect position to try and model learning organizations for others. Years ago, he visited our school sites around the US and even some abroad to observe and learn what is possible, especially with young children. He offered this quote that is cited in our book, The Habit Forming Guide to Becoming a Systems Thinker. And I'll let you read that. So now it's time for stories of impact. The stories of impact I would like to share will focus primarily with young children, since I suspect that might be a new space for many of you. If you have young children in your life, I am hoping these examples will inspire you to develop your own young systems thinkers. Bringing systems thinking to 5, 6, and 7-year-olds has been an incredible learning process. What we have learned is that young children are natural systems thinkers. We have a theory that traditional education programs that organize their daily schedules into subject area lessons fragment learning and can create potential barriers to children's natural abilities to make connections and to see interdependencies in their real world. As you experience their stories, I encourage you to make connections to your own efforts to positively impact systems. I am hoping that you can learn as much from these lessons as we have. Let's begin with one real-world challenge that 7-year-olds took on to positively impact their community. This story comes from a school that is located in a high-poverty industrial area where children often observe homeless people in their own neighborhoods. Systems change for them began with a driving question. They were curious about people who they suspected were hungry, and they wanted to do something about that. A step in the process was for them to examine their own mental models, their own preconceived notions about their observations, and the assumptions they held about hunger. They used simple drawings and text to share their mental models. After some reading, a field trip to the community food bank, interviews with social workers and health professionals, they began to build a connection circle map of the system. They drew causal links and labeled the cause and effect arrows using S's and O's for same and opposite relationships. This tool is a great foundation to teaching causal loop mapping. The connection circle helped them see the structure of the system and how it worked. The children learned about the term food insecurity and saw it as an accumulation or stock. This is a very simple use of stock flow mapping, but it helped them see the converters that contributed to both the inflow and outflow of food insecurity. Notice the behavior over time graphs within the stock that depict two possible scenarios that the children wanted to influence. Notice some of the outflow converters and consider which ones could inform a plan of action. Converters like food stamps, recycling, a garden, yard sales, jobs, winning the lottery, and money. To recognize all they learned about the system, they revisited their mental models and noticed the shifts in their thinking, understanding, and assumptions. Shifting mental models is often the most difficult aspect of systems change. For children, we have learned that their curiosity, willingness to learn, and adaptability influence the ease with which they shift their mental models. We only wish it could be that easy with adults. They then developed new questions and wanted to make a plan of action where they could actually do something to impact the food insecurity stock. They focused on one converter that was in their circle of influence. It was the one that involved a vegetable garden, but money was needed. So they used their maps to create a sales pitch that they made to parents and school staff. The outcome was that people decided to invest. With some help from their teachers and volunteers, they took on the task of planting gardens, growing their own food on campus. The teachers incorporated science, math, writing, reading, and even music into this effort. The garden became their outdoor classroom, and because this was in Arizona, it was a year-long effort. Realizing that there is great satisfaction when you can eat food that you grow yourself, they wanted to enjoy their harvest during lunchtime. They went through a proposal process to apply for a license, an official license, to allow the cafeteria workers to include the garden food in school lunches. It was approved, and the children enjoyed their own harvest during school lunch time. And harvests were also provided to families and community members on scheduled Saturdays. Well, they didn't stop with gardens. The next step was building coops and raising chickens as well. Eggs were added to the menu, and the children learned so much about composting, fertilizing, and ecosystem interdependencies throughout their outdoor classroom experience. Lessons learned were about the importance of optimism, abilities to make a positive difference, and a desire to always look for ways to improve systems. It has been fun to track the various projects that these children have taken on in regards to systems change efforts. Examples of other projects include decreasing the use of paper throughout campus, addressing the level of noise in the cafeteria during lunch, increasing the level of kindness throughout the school, and learning how to create and run a business so that they could donate their end-of-the-year profits to a charity of choice. Systems thinking habits and tools were embedded in each of these efforts. And as a matter of fact, the term systems thinking is seldom used at the school. The goal is to make systems thinking an embedded, fully integrated aspect of a school's teaching and learning culture. It is about people becoming systems thinkers, not just using it here and there for show. I'd like to share one more short story that was an unplanned and somewhat serendipitous event that happened many years ago, but it's still a popular example of systems thinking capabilities of young children. It's an example of their independent use and application of systems thinking tools. There were 3 first-grade boys, each of them 6 years old, who were constantly having disagreements and fights on the playground. Their teacher and parents were frustrated, and this seemed to be a never-ending battle. Finally, they were asked to sit down and make a plan to face into and solve the ongoing problem. Their teacher even said, "Boys, you have the tools. This is a good time to use them. As you will see in this short video, the boys decided to draw a reinforcing loop to illustrate their problem. Listen to how this feedback loop helps them not only define their problem, but envision a long-lasting solution.
And our reinforcing loop is about we get mean words, hurt feelings, mean words, hurt feelings, then we get fights, we get mean words again and hurt feelings, and then we thought about some ways to break the loop.
We thought about all of our ways to break the reinforcing loop, but we tried this. This is crossed out. Saying I'm sorry kind of worked, but we haven't tried these out yet. But the next time we get in a fight, we're going to try it.
What would the behavior over time graph look like for this reinforcing loop?
First, it would look like, here's good for bad. It would be, and then we'd get hurt feelings and mean words. We'd keep going like this. And then one of the leverages would make us go down. If this reinforcing loop said nice words, hurt nice feelings, we could get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of these, and change them to something that's not bad, change it to something that's good. That will keep the loop going.
So other examples of impact come from secondary students who make and present their causal maps, their systems thinking icebergs, and stock flow maps, representations of systems that they want to change or that they want to focus on and solving problems that matter to them. Here, Patrick is sharing his team's map focused on student success to propose possible leverage actions for adults who serve on the school board. Systems thinking effectively brings student voice as an important perspective to systems change. The habits and tools of systems thinking also help students demonstrate an in-depth understanding of curricular standards and learning targets. Because we've been doing this work for several decades, we see the long-lasting impact integrated in, as systems thinking has been integrated into instructional practices. We follow as many students as we can into adulthood. And here is one recent example of an inspiring systems thinking story of impact. This is Taylor Davidson, former 12-year-old. Many years ago, he was a young student attending one of our schools. I knew him because I was principal at the time. Recently, my colleague and I bumped into him at a business networking event, and he became so animated in wanting to tell us about how he has applied what he learned when he was 12 and 13 into his own business. Mind you, Taylor is in his late 30s, maybe even 40 right now. So if you do the math, this is a very long time delay in seeing impact. He agreed to write a blog for us for our website. And here I offer some quotes from the blog. I'll give you a chance to read them. Currently, our work with adults, policymakers, managers, directors, and C-level leaders has escalated. The capacity building involves the same instructional strategies, the same habits of a systems thinker, the visual tools, the learning by doing, and like the children, adults are encouraged to intentionally practice and facilitate in order to deepen their understanding of systems they are trying to improve. So in addition to some of the face-to-face and contract work that we do, we are really excited to announce this online space that we've developed called the Thinking Tools Studio. The Thinking Tools Studio provides learning opportunities for many. We want to increase the accessibility of this important learning to many and all. It's a place to learn and apply the fundamentals of systems thinking in your own time and in your own way, and it's free of charge. We have interactive courses for each habit and tool of systems thinking. The site provides resources like downloadable templates, facilitation guides, lesson plans, and more. The site has been available for about a year, and we have been tracking the subscribers and are pleased to see the level of scale in those interested in learning. Here's a behavior over time graph of the subscribers. You'll notice a significant uptick in registered learners occurred this past March. We suspect the impact of the COVID pandemic has much to do with this interest, as there is no better time to be a systems thinker. And learning and working remotely makes the Thinking Tool Studio a real value. In addition to these numbers, we are also tracking the various places around the world that have reached out to us through Thinking Tool Studio and requests for partnerships and direct services. So take a look at this list. It's alphabetical, 88 to date, and see if where you live is noted in the list. Those that are bolded and underlined are places where we have or are currently working to support systems thinking learning. In addition to the Thinking Tool Studio and contractual direct services, we have a number of efforts in the works. We are working on a new website. We have monthly open studio sessions that focus on a variety of topics, and people from all over the world attend those free of charge. Our next one, scheduled for November 5th, will focus on a systems thinking approach to graduate level student research. Our Studio Series courses are 6 weeks with 1 session per week. Currently, we have an introductory offering and a course called Leading for Impactful Change. Last month, we held our very first virtual all-day forum. The focus was on early childhood system, and we had over 200 people come together to talk about policy, equity, high-quality care and education for young children, and family engagement. It was truly an inspiring and rich day of learning for all. Just like our Open Studio series, we have monthly sessions offered for teachers free of charge. Those are on Saturdays. They are designed to provide examples of ways teachers can bring systems thinking approaches and tools into their classrooms. Lastly, we are currently involved in the development of a credentialing program that scales the current work we are doing at particular sites and develop systems thinking teachers and facilitators. I believe my time is up, so please accept my sincere gratitude for joining me in this session. If you have questions or want more information about the Water Center, I invite you to please contact me. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Tracy. Qué gran plenaria. Bueno, pues les recuerdo a nuestros asistentes que pueden comentar, felicitar e interactuar con Tracy desde nuestro Slack. Y espero que puedan seguir disfrutando de nuestro programa.
Mi nombre es Samuel Prieto Mejía, profesor del programa de Ingeniería de Sistemas de la Universidad del Magdalena en Santa Marta, Colombia. Hace más de 20 años he promovido en dicha institución las ideas de sistemas y la dinámica de sistemas. Es así que en las asignaturas de Ingeniería Industrial e Ingeniería de Sistemas ya existen cátedras permanentes sobre dicho tópico. Este mes, del 26 al 30 de octubre, se realiza el 18º Congreso de Latinoamericano de Dinámica de Sistemas, de la Asociación Colombiana de Dinámica de Sistemas y del capítulo brasilero de Dinámica de Sistemas. Les invito a participar virtualmente. Googlean, entran a Google y teclean Asociación Colombiana de Dinámica de Sistemas y allí encontrarán toda la información pertinente. Esta disciplina, creada por Jay Forrester en los años 50, permite entender desde la ingeniería las diversas complejidades del hoy, las epidemias, la degradación del medio ambiente, los problemas de transporte y otros. Los invito a participar.